Wonderful. So we'll open up to the floor with questions. I believe mics will be passed around. Does anyone have a question? Okay. Perhaps I'll begin then. And actually, Sorapoj, you actually did comment on this during your presentation, but yesterday we asked all the New York developers in terms of the global forces acting on their projects. So the theme of the conference, the global interchange. So perhaps you can just, we can go down the line, you can each comment on how you saw these forces, whether they were financial or other, influencing either the design or the process.
I think for the benefit of us, repeat that.
Okay. So tying your building into the conference theme of the global interchange, yep. What were the global forces that you felt had an influence on your project, either during design or construction?
Well, I think the financial crisis that hit us in 2007 and 8 couldn't have been worse, particularly as we'd got planning consent, everything was ready to go, and that wasn't good. But I think, as I said, you've got to be persistent to get these projects done. They're not projects that can be completed within 3 or 4 years when you're building to and changing the city structure completely. I think you've got to be prepared for between a 5 and 10-year program. That probably doesn't answer your question, but at least it gave me an opportunity to start the conversation going.
I guess for me, it's coming especially to this conference, I'm a very competitive person by nature, and that's part of the reason I get these things done in Bangkok. But to see the race of the tall buildings, and with the latest one now, it's 4 digits, I think that's kind of you asked me what is the impact on the global. I feel that in the end, I guess what I'm trying to say is to compete on a global level would be very challenging nowadays. Of course, we would like to take into account of what's going on globally and trying to do a better development or a bigger development or more interesting development. But I think to do something very close to the cities and consider the program and consider a lot of other angles of the development itself. As a developer, I think that is something that I spent a lot of time on in the past few years, trying to how to make the buildings be as much part of the city as possible and give back to the city and educated or inspired the next generation of the people that would contribute to the industry in general. Is something that I feel would be the next phase and something that would be of interest for me to pursue.
Mounib, Your Excellency.
Well, I think I've been in the real estate business for a long, long time. And I think you have to plan for the worst and wish for the best. You have to weather cycles and ride on trends. And your project have to be planned in such a way to be able to live the downturn of any cycle and wait, embrace to jump on the occasion of any shift in the cycle or in the trend. Great. So I think this is briefly how it looks like.
Luckily for us in Saudi Arabia, the financial crisis was very limited in effect to our country, and I think we managed to pass through that period in a very stable way. One of the things that the government was always trying to do during that period is to assure the investor and the market of its commitment to adopt and to work with them to get out of that crisis, and I think we managed to do that.
Any questions from the floor? Yes.
Yes, it's Mark Garland from Toronto. Each of the buildings has an observation deck. I wondered if you could explain what your revenue projections for the observation decks are versus the other commercial uses of the building?
Our observation deck is not open yet. But I tell you, we have 1,800 square meters on 3 levels at a height of 644, 648, and 652 meters, with serviced by 2 double-decker Coney elevators flying at 12.5 meters per second. That will take you in 66 seconds from the ground floor. So this is a ride. And we have a protruding from the tower 500 square meter balcony terrace that will be the largest ever on Earth. I don't know when we can open it. Maybe Anton can tell us when we can use it. But bottom line, we're going to run a think tank. We had a conversation with the group, my group, to see how can help us, think out of the box to see what can we do with 1,800 square meters at a height of 644 meters, which has not been done before. But I tell you, the information we have, the studies we have coming from, the Burj Khalifa, for example, revenue. I tell you, they have a revenue more than $120 million a year just from this 250 or 300 square meter observatory they have. And all the other Taipei 101, Joe was speaking that it's a very profitable business. Empire State Building is very profitable. So we're counting on it.
Do you want me to answer that? Well, we've already got it. It's attracting 1 million visitors a year. I think we have a duty to show London as it's never been seen before. And you can see the City of London and the immediate area looks like Toy Town. But in London, you've got a 2,000-year history. Although there are objections from historic royal palaces, visitors could now see the Tower of London as they've never seen it before, and they can with other parts of London. Apart from that, you can see a 40-mile radius, and it's a thrilling experience. And as I said to you earlier, London, visitors will never have seen London in the way they can now see it. Apart from the fact it is profitable, it's got to be very well managed, and we have a limited capacity because of the design of the building, but we are attracting 1 million visitors a year, and it's a very important feature of our building. And as I said earlier, I think buildings should be multi-use and they should be open to the public.
Sorapoj, would you like to add to that?
I fully agree with Mr. Sellar here that it's a very important part conceptually and also economically. For our building, we planned with an architect from day one, and it goes down to the logistic of getting people from the ground up to the top of the tower, as many as we can, as quickly as we can, as smoothly as we can. So in our buildings, we have put up the largest lift and the quickest lift in Thailand, 2 of them, to be able to transport at the maximum of 10,000 people a day, or closer to 4 million people a year. Fortunately, we have 3 full floors of those experience, including this protrusion glass, or we call sky tray. And also, we also have a very interesting sky bar at the top as well. And because of the climate, we are fortunate enough as well. I believe it's still going to be the world's tallest outdoor 360-degree observatory view. And just because of the location of the building situated, it facing the cities, and on the back it facing the river. So it's very important to give that 360 degrees view. But we also have a big plan to build in, a couple of days for students, for non-commercial purposes as well. I think that's a very, very important part. And that is the plan that we have for Mahanakhon.
Thank you. Dr. Wood.
Sorry to hop the limelight again. I wanted to just say that I thought that was a fantastic session. 3 different buildings, 3 different cultures. I thought it was incredible. There's no accident that there's you're presenting on the tallest building in Saudi Arabia, London, Thailand, Western Europe, the world. I want to ask you, how important is that title of the tallest, and can you try and put some monetary figure on that? Not just from a promotional viewpoint, but from a, why are you going for the tallest within those respective categories?
You're asking me?
I'm asking all three of you.
Well, it's easy for me because we're not the tallest building, and and we're quite happy. But we think with the Shard, it's got global recognition, design, quality, location is every bit as important as height, and so we're not really interested in. We're interested in what we've achieved in London, the great city of London with its history. We've got height, but we've got to be reasonably compatible with our city. So tall is not everything, in our opinion, because it can't be. That deals with me, Mr. Wood. You, or either of you.
You know, Saudi Arabia is a very old country, rich in culture, and it has a wonderful history, and it's a very powerful country economically. And at one point in time, tall towers are a statement of success, it's a statement of economic success of a country. You know, through history, since the pharaohs in 2,000 years ago, to establish, you know, the mightiness of the country and the strengths of the rulers, they build the pyramids. And in other ages, they built beautiful palaces in Europe, beautiful structures everywhere in the world. And now in modern times today, every country that is succeeding in its good times, it is building beautiful towers, starting from New York in the early 20s, and all along the last century, and now picking up again. Then you go to places like Dubai, you know, they establish themselves as a rising economy with economic growth and success, and they establish in Abu Dhabi the same. And I think it's about time in Saudi Arabia to have a unique masterpiece, which is to the size of the country, that will reflect the financial power the financial power, the history, and the great values of the culture of the country. So this is how I see it. Why do we build the tallest tower in the world? It's a statement at the right time.
And the question was, how important is this title of having the tallest building in the city or the countries, and why we're doing it? I guess I'm looking at it a bit of a different perspective. Bangkok is a city also that governed by legal regulations, and when we find out we have an opportunity to reach the new heights of being the tallest, I guess for me, I'm asking myself, why not, you know, if you have that chance? And everything started from there. But I think it's something that it's very nice to have. It's not a must-have. I think what goes in there, the qualities and what it means to the city, it's also very, very important, because when you own the tallest buildings, it's very visible. And it's a responsibility that it almost, you put this building in other people's view, right? It's in there, you cannot not see it. So there's a lot of, it comes, for me, I view it as it's come with a lot of responsibilities and expectations, and our goal after we finish the buildings, which going through a lot of challenges, is how do we live up to that expectation as well of being the tallest building, and especially in Thailand, that government doesn't have a plan to do it. So it's a private sector who's doing that, and that is something that for me, it's excited to be seen, to see how people would accept this. And it could be very welcoming, like the Empire State Building in New York. It projects, when it started, it has a clear kind of clear goal of the people back then is to bring in back the optimism after the world depressions. So it could mean a lot of things, positive things to people, and I think that is quite important in that regards.
Okay. Jude?
Yeah, congratulations and thanks for sharing. In 1977, I worked for the Dubai owner, Techakraisri, and it seems the development vision of Jeddah was similar. He wanted Dubai to be the center between London, Paris, Shanghai, and Hong Kong, and to be the pace setter city in the world. And I think they were with that very strong development vision, including creating a brand, the tallest, the largest, and so on. And he rotated the map of the world, making Dubai as the center of the world. Very, very powerful. And question to the four big mega developers. The challenge always is the balancing the daytime population and nighttime population. And being more transit engaged and walkable. Shark, I think, was able to do that. Congratulations. It's walkable and also integrated very well with the heritage buildings. So my question now is, maybe from a walkable distance of, say, 10-minute walk, what's the difference between the number of jobs and the residential units? So you reduce the long commute, and that will also be being smart. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The tower in our project is the centerpiece of a city. So it's the icon. It is the beacon. It's the icon of Jeddah economic city. Around the tower, we are going to have a mixed-use environment with residences, offices, hospitals, schools, leisure, entertainment, shopping, and the tower is going to create the value because the lands around it will be, become more valuable as we build the tower. And people will be, I said earlier in my presentation that Jeddah is a highway city. It's flat, it's 50 kilometers long, and to go from one place to another, you have to use the car. We're building the concept of the walkable city. So people will be able to live, to organize their life, to live, work, play, entertain in the same place without having to use a car. And this is not very common in the Middle East because of the weather condition and the distances. Okay? So my project will become the first walkable city project with public transport, indoor public transport. So you go out from the tower, you don't need to use a car. You will walk down streets which are covered, there will be some air conditioned, some will be tempered. And you can go from the tower to the mall. From the mall, you can go to your office. You can go to your home. You can go to different places in the city. So you have to look at the tower as part of a global offering, rather than just a project standing by itself.
I should say that London is controlled by air traffic control, and you can't build more than 1,000 feet before you hit that buffer. So we just about managed to get a little over that.
We have the same problem in Jeddah. We have worked very closely with the aviation authorities to get the height, because the airport is around 12 kilometers away from the site.
That's when.
So they just authorized it, and today we are on all the airline maps. Any pilot opens it, he knows that there is some sort of mountain here. It's because we're going to have more towers. There's going to be more towers around the tower, but not that high.
With the weather, what's the walkable distance?
Look, the distance from the tower to the far end of the mall is 1 kilometer. Our land is 5.3 million square meters. Phase 1 is 1.5 million square meters. So it's a considerable distance, And you can really go from the tower to your office just by taking a public transport within the retail area, which now we call it shopping mall, but actually it's shopping streets which are indoor.
And actually, just to pick up on something that Jude had said, this notion of Dubai and what the tower did in Dubai, but cities are in a way in competition with each other. And when you're developing Jeddah, what is it? And perhaps His Excellency can answer this question. Like, how do you see through the planning and development of Jeddah and of Riyadh? Well, first of all, how do Riyadh and Jeddah differentiate from each other? And then the two of those, how do those differentiate from Dubai, for example?
I think Jeddah and Riyadh differ geographically first. So this is a coastal city, so it benefits from being by the coast. But I think we watched carefully the Dubai experience, and we feel that it's a successful one. A lot of our citizens spend actually their every holiday in Dubai, and it's becoming a major hub for the citizens. So we actually not trying to duplicate their experiences, but we are trying to benefit from it. And what we have done now is to implement the type of culture that, because we have a different concept or looking to the environment inside the city, that preserve the sort of nature of the society and help the families and the locals to enjoy their times, and also utilize it as a comprehensive project. As Mr. Mounib said, the project should be self-contained. As I mentioned, that we encourage the multi-use and concentration of activities around so people actually have less travel distances to go for their jobs, for their work. And I think the two cities benefited from that. And hopefully, when the Kingdom project finishes, it will be not a duplication of Dubai Mall, but it will be a new Dubai Mall with the touch of the culture and the environment in the country. It's going to be difficult to forecast how the people will actually move into that. But we are encouraging them even by allowing new rezoning around the city. This is something Mr. Mounib doesn't know about yet, but we are now planning into that, so we can encourage people actually to move into that area and make it more of a new Jeddah, if that's it.
I would like to add something from our perspective. Saudi Arabia is 30 million people, 70% is below 30 years old, 83% live in cities. Jeddah is 4 million people, growing at 5% per year. So the local critical mass of demand is there. In Dubai, they receive 80 million visitors a year. The population is 2 million. So they rely on the foreigners. It's a completely different offering. What we're trying to build in ourselves in Jeddah, we are focusing primarily and solely on the Saudi market, which is, it's tremendous, it's big. Second, Jeddah it's a special economy, does not rely on oil and gas like Riyadh. And Jeddah is the gateway to Islam. The government has announced that it's going to give 60 million visas for MOMRA and Hajj in the coming 5 years. They're building an airport for 80 million passengers due to finish 2035, first phase, 35 million next year. They're building the metro lines, they're building the infrastructure for tourism. Jeddah is the prime tourism destination of the kingdom. Everybody comes for vacation to Jeddah. On weekends, on summer, in winter, whenever there's vacation, Jeddah is congested. Third, Jeddah is a business hub. It is like Dubai to Abu Dhabi. All the trading happens in Jeddah, although the decision is in Riyadh. Riyadh is 6 million people. And Jeddah is the second industrial zone in the kingdom. With all of this in mind, us as real estate developer, how do we see it? We see we're doing a mixed-use development geared for the young youth, because 70% are below 30. In 10 years' time, 70% will be below 20. The young people need house. They need schooling. They need housing. They cannot afford to live anymore in houses. People have traveled the world. Saudis have traveled the world, and they have seen, and they've lived in apartments. So now the new offerings are, they need jobs. We are going to have, in our phase one of the city, 50,000 job opportunities for the young Saudis. You tell me how? Because of the mixed-use environment. We have today, in a line, 7 hotels. Each hotel is around 300 rooms. We have a 460,000 GLA shopping mall coming up. And with the Saudization law, all of these jobs are primarily for Saudis. So this is how we see the offering. We try to cater for the market. The young people need leisure, entertainment. They need to go to shopping malls. They need public open spaces, and we're offering generous public open spaces for the locals. The offering in other countries is it's a different perspective.